Hi, Ryan. So, I think you asked an incredibly important question because it deals with the isolation of Iran and the potential consequences of that, and whether the use of force to keep them from developing nuclear weapons is entirely warranted. In my humble opinion, I don't think it's necessarily feasible to attack Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities in order to prevent or prolong the process leading up to breakout capacity. But based on what he said in the past, I don't think the new national security advisor would agree with that assessment. So, in other words, while I do not think that an attack on Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities is feasible or warranted, I don't think it's entirely unlikely either. It's important to look for ways to create incentives encouraging Iran to constrain its nuclear development. But if sanctions and diplomacy can't mitigate proliferation, those options shouldn't be taken off the table or superseded by an attack or forced regime change either. So, as Sagan suggests, a deal with Iran would entail a sequence of diplomatic steps designed to get Iran to place constraints on nuclear development in exchange for very limited security guarantees and some economic benefits. I think this is where it starts to get tricky though, because US alliances in the region could prevent this or at least restrict its implementation. As you mentioned in your post, Israel and Saudi Arabia are of particular concern here. Given the regional alliances against them and the possibility of retaliation, maybe Iran will be less of a threat, but given developments in Syria and Iranian military involvement, especially after today's Israeli airstrikes on IRGC controlled parts of Syrian airbase, it's important to keep in mind the stance of Russia and its tendency to not condemn the Assad regime for blatant humanitarian violations. It was also difficult to answer your question because I think ultimately it comes down to where do we go from here, and honestly, I can't say. But I think Sagan's plan following North Korean framework could be useful, given some substantial adjustments to account for recent events, especially those in Syria. So thanks for the great question.